Webcomics are an indie scene, which the traditional industry mostly keeps their hands off, but it wasn't always this way. At one point, all of the big three were trying to break into the industry. To tell this story, let's go back to 1996. While the rest of the industry seemed to be sleeping on this newfangled internet thing, Marvel were experimenting with what they called Cybercomics, or webisodes. They made them using Adobe Shockwave, which at the time was groundbreaking tech. They were created specifically for this new medium of internet content, and featured grade A animation like this. And due to some limitations of the time, the audio sounded like this. Crisp. While I commend them for trying to move the space forward, it didn't seem like this would pay off. By 2000, the big bad Marvelino had run out of that sweet, sweet green. All the new age tech was costing them more than they could maintain, and so they opted for a new approach by making DotComics, a platform that seemed like a new and interesting way of showcasing their less popular content. That is until it devolved into at best a marketing gimmick for their ultimate line and was subsequently thrown into the scrap heap in 2006. Marvel then went on to create some creepy motion comics, and I have some here, let's check them out.
Systems!
Mommy, the fires are coming this way! I know, the doors won't open.
Gurney, but I figured your armor's weight would collapse it. We use this for moving heavy lab equipment around.
That's okay. I am heavy lab equipment.
While Marvel was warping the human face into irrecognizable shapes, within the murky depths of the internet, a comic collective run by Dean Hashpiel and others would start gaining fans. First on LiveJournal, eventually leading to them getting their own site. At this point in webcomics history, it wouldn't be unfair to say that stuff was getting real. You see, with Marvel.comics, it was only about getting you to buy their physical releases, but with Act-i-vate, it was 25 highly skilled creatives, no paywalls, no ads, and releasing their content entirely for free to the internet. Even if it wasn't the first, this was undoubtedly one of the most experienced webcomic collectives online, and that came with some big boots to fill. Luckily, by the fall of 2007, they do just that. With all the buzz, it wasn't surprising at all when DC finally threw their hat into the ring.
The imprint, called ZudaComics.com, will permit aspiring cartoonists to register at its website and submit an 8-panel sample of their work. Starting in October, and each month thereafter, editors at DC Comics will select 10 entries, post them for public view, and invite people to vote for their favorite. Editors may also declare as many as 6 submissions to be instant winners during the calendar year.
Enter Zuda Comics in the fall of 2007. And at first it was met with skepticism, with Scott McCloud saying,
"What might spring to mind to some people, including me, is Venus Flytrap. I'm wary of how much control and/or ownership over each comic DC might expect in return for publishing them."
You see, creators' rights had always been a big issue in the comics publishing world, and none had done it worse than Marvel and DC. Up until the early 80s, most comic creators were required to sign work-for-hire contracts, which meant that any work produced while working for Marvel or DC was wholly owned by those publishers. And if you believe Neil Adams, DC Comics would even go as far as to print checks with work-for-hire contracts right on them, so to get paid, you had to get played. And with DC opening a new platform with the aim of getting in less experienced creators, several within the industry were, at the very least, a bit wary.
I'm not bashing it, it's just sort of, for very little money, you can do that on your own. But again, maybe DC's planning to promote the heck out of this, and people will get attention, and that would be good for them, I suppose.
Already aware of these issues, Zuda's editorial team announced that they would make their contracts available to be viewed by any of the site's visitors. With that out of the way, Zuda was ready to take the industry by storm. Quickly gaining clicks, they attracted many new artists with their specially engineered website, curated contests that paid an industry standard rate, and the winner got a contract to continue their vision. Every passing month, they proved that the website was a long game for them. There was talk of toys, movies, and games, hopeful dreams from a still fledgling platform. But what was it like under the hood? I managed to speak to some people who worked for the site, like former contest winner Tony Trov, writer of the Black Cherry Bombshells.
I loved working at Zuda. I think everything about Zuda was pretty unique. Most publishers don't pay for completely original comics up front. Usually it's a back-end deal.
I also got to speak to Kwanzo Sajifor, who was the sole editor of the company at that time.
Zuda quickly formed something that never existed before around a comics imprint: community. The artists knew each other, talked, collaborated, and helped each other compete. We were also the most accessible internal team at DC and regularly hung out with creators, many of whom I'm still friends with today. That last part allowed me to establish a real and honest relationship With comic queries, that wasn't about soliciting work so much as telling fun stories.
The rising tide of Zuda seemed to have no end, with a very active message board and lots of creative enthusiasm. No one expected what was to come. But in 2010, Zuda closed its doors for the last time. For many, it would signify the ending of an era, but for others, it was just the beginning of their creative journeys. With most of the artists going on to other IP, and a lot of content getting folded back into DC, many wondered why things ended the way they did. Kwanzaa told us the main reason he saw was upper management's lack of belief in the economic viability of an online imprint.
Zuda was not self-sufficient. My biggest regret was that I didn't push for it to offer advertising, which, considering our traffic, would have made shutting it down a harder argument. That stated, DC isn't known for product innovation or maintaining imprints, which is weird for a publisher that pioneered the graphic novel and made a strong business of non-superhero fiction. They got into digital coloring late, manga late, girls comics late, webcomics late, comicsology late. That's not shade. Loads of large companies are slow to adapt. It's whether that hurts your business that matters. Owning Batman affords a lot of comfort.
A lack of monetization from such a big company may seem strange to us now, but this was the mid-2000s. Not a lot of businesses saw the internet as a profitable space, and with DC Comics' revenue coming mostly from book sales, an imprint not bringing in money stood on shaky ground. The state of Zuda also coincided with a big change in leadership, who, according to some, were only comfortable making superhero comics. Those same leaders would eventually shut down several of DC's New York offices as well. Nevertheless, Zuda's influence lived on. Hell, that's why I'm talking about it. Even though at its end, some people treated it as DC's limp attempt at webcomics, at the time I think the general feeling among comicers was, we do this job in order to be known for and hired to do what we love. And the more outlets across the landscape of the medium, the healthier and richer all our futures become. Zuda might not have been a big breakout hit, but not only did it enable many creative careers in the industry, for many, its influence is a big driving force behind their work, and that's as good a legacy as any business could ask for. If you want to leave now, remember to like, share, and subscribe. On the Patreon, there will be a live stream where I will dump a ton of information that I found and couldn't effectively use in this video. Thank you to all the names here without which this video would not even exist. Thank you to my patrons for just being awesome, especially Nick the Halfling, Archangel, Cheesy, and Ayashi. If you're a former Zuda user or artist on Zuda, please tell me about your experiences in the comments. I know I left a few things out. I might have gotten some things wrong, so it'd be great to hear from you. If you like this video, suggest other things I should research. There are some comics from Zuda that I think people should definitely read, and I should have them linked in the description with places to buy them, etc. Again, like, subscribe, check the doobly-doo, especially for our Patreon and Discord. And all the research I did might be linked down there. I don't remember if I will. I'll see you all next time. Pizza's on me.